This is my 125-gallon tank. This tank has been up and running for about 24 years. I used to have a school of discus in here that were in there for about 13 years, and then I switched over to angelfish. And in this tank, there's also a school of roseline sharks or denison barbs. There's about 20 of those in there. There's a small school of rummy-nosed tetras, and I think there's 30 to 35 of the rummy-nosed tetras in there. There's also some plecos. Started out with 2, and now there's about 15, where some of the babies have survived where they laid eggs, and most of the time the other fish in the tank end up eating the fry, but there are some that's managed to survive. So now I've got, it's either between 12 and 15. I don't have a accurate count since some of them hide part of the time. And this tank is in the evening mode, where there's just one small strip light on there. It does not even span the whole tank. The main light is off, and it stays on for about 9 hours a day, and the little light stays on for about 3, so it gets a total of about 12 hours of light a day. The plants need the light for them to be able to grow. I try to only use real plants in all of my tanks, unless it's a quarantine tank, and then that one I just use plastic plants because I usually have to medicate. The main thing with your big display tanks, like this tank is so big, it would cost a fortune to have to medicate it. So everything that goes in this tank is quarantined first. Everything goes under, if I buy new fish, I put them in a quarantine tank that's in a totally separate room, and they stay in quarantine for 3 to 4 months before I move them into my big tank. And I do that to make sure they're healthy. Any fish I buy before it goes in the tank, I watch them and still normally go ahead and treat them for parasites, and also treat them with an antibiotic in case they're carrying a bacteria infection. And then I just leave them in quarantine for 3 months. Sometimes I've left them in there for as long as 6 months to make sure they're healthy before I move them into my display tank. Some of my roseline sharks in there are about 8 years old. There's 3 different groups. So there's 3 different ages of roseline sharks in there. And my rummy-nosed tetras, those I kept in quarantine 4 months, and they've been in this tank for a little over 3 years. The bristlenose, those were hatched and raised in another tank I have, so I knew they were healthy because they were born in my tank. And the bristlenose, those have been in there about 4 years. So tanks are a lot of fun, but they do take some work. This tank gets an 80% water change every week, and actually all my tanks get an 80% water change every week.